And we've got another friend with us who's a contributor to the Gray Zone, a special guest. Alex Rubenstein is in the house, and he's been covering this issue as well, more on the information war front. How you doing, Alex?
I'm well. How are you, Max?
I'm hanging in there, man. I mean,
Wyatt.
What's
this
up,
is a
Alex?
super stream. I'm doing this. We're going for like 5 or 6 hours today. I'm going without any help from any methamphetamines. I've written 4 books without any stimulants other than coffee. I'm not wearing a diaper, and I'm still here, so I'm good.
Yeah, leagues and bounds ahead of the rest of the class of
but for
prominent
real, like,
journalists that cover war. You know, I feel like they're all like kind of amped up.
I mean, I honestly, it would be hard to say no at this point.
How else is Michael Weiss going to operate 10 different NAFO accounts?
Well, let's talk about that. And Wyatt, we can. Someone has a good comment about you, Rico. I don't know if you remember Rico Suave. He was like the first corporate Latino rapper introduced to the American gringos. But anyway, you are in Mexico, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going
to quite the Donbass, but you know, all the NAFO trolls are concerned about my relations with the cartel.
Okay, well, you're talking about NAFO. A lot of people who aren't like extremely online, or you know, either targeted by NAFO or the nerd ass members of NAFO don't know what it is. So what are you talking about?
Well, I'm going to try to stick to what we've put out so far, because we have more coming. Yeah. But NAFO is basically, they call it an organic, decentralized operation or organization. Their modus operandi is to just bombard anyone critical of the proxy war on Twitter, make fun of them. You know, they place particular value on Russian officials, diplomats, this kind of thing. But really anybody who questions the proxy war or says anything, I mean, you don't have to even directly offend, but anything that's like counter to what the Ukrainian government and NATO is putting out, they'll harass you. And they have, tried to dox people, mass report, this kind of thing. It's an information operation, but what's critical about it is that it's an information operation on behalf of an organization, a fighting group in Ukraine called the Georgian National Legion. And this is a group that I've written extensively about for the Gray Zone over the past months, because I feel that their role on the front lines and in the information space is really overlooked by alternative media. They are very important. What happened at the beginning of the war was, Zelensky opened the floodgates for foreign volunteers to come and fight with Ukrainians. But prior to the establishment of the International Legion, there was already a group called the International Legion, and that was the Georgian Legion. So it's not all Georgians. A lot of it's Americans that have gone over to Ukraine and fought. And some of the nastiest people go ahead, Max.
Oh no.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's some of the nastiest people fighting that I've encountered, including Craig Lang. He tried to blow up his wife while he was in the U.S. Army. He caught her cheating on him, so he set out landmines outside of her apartment and tried to kill her. He got off easy because he had a mental illness, so he got out of jail and then went over to Ukraine in Donbass, and this speaks to the terror that Wyatt has uncovered and exposed in the past month or so. He committed multiple war crimes. The FBI has video evidence of him drowning a woman that was given actually amphetamines so that she would not pass out while she drowned to death, and that she would have to experience that conscious. And then other war crimes too. It's not all the information that the FBI has is not out, but there was that leaked report which detailed this drowning. After he left Ukraine, he came back to the United States and he wanted to go back to Ukraine. So what did he do? He set up a Craigslist ad that he was going to sell his weapons, and then when he found a buyer in Florida, he drove down there and he killed them and took their money. And there's reports that he was that he went to Colombia to and was armed by the government to try to overthrow the government of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela and kill communists. So he is back in Ukraine, where he's like considered a national hero, but he's not the only one with the Georgian Legion. I documented multiple war crimes. There was the video from Bucha where they killed a captive Russian, shot him close range, which is a war crime. And then there's two testimonies that I obtained. One is from a guy named Benjamin Velcro, where he details a suspected spy, 18 years old, for Russia. And so what did they do? They cut his Achilles tendon on his heel and made him swim. And while he swam, they took target practice shots at him. Henry Heft, who I interviewed, I was provided with testimony that he gave, which detailed how two people blew a checkpoint in the east near Lvov. Not even like it, I'm sorry, in the west near Lvov, not in the east, not in the front lines, where two people blew a checkpoint and were accused of being spies by the Georgian Legion. So they put black bags over their head and took them into a basement and slit their throats. So this is the Georgian Legion. This is the organization, the fighting group that NAFO was launched with the explicit purpose of providing funds to, because the founder of NAFO, Kama Camellia, as he's known on Twitter, but his real name is Kamil Dashevsky. He described the Georgian Legion as, he described their reputation as mercenaries and criminals, and thought that that would preclude them from Western support. So he launched this NAFO operation to get them weapons, get them body armor, that kind of thing.
Well, we're going to talk about NAFO co-founder Dashevsky in a second, but I wanted to play that testimony that you mentioned, Alex. This is testimony by former members of the Georgian Legion, which is the main fundraising recipient of NAFO, the North Atlantic Fellows Organization, a troll farm that has been celebrated by the Washington Post, by Politico, by the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Make sure your volume is up. And if you don't want to hear deeply disturbing testimony of torture and execution carried out by people funded by NAFO, then, close your ears.
So Sunday, Saturday, when they caught those two spies? Caught two Russian spies, blew a checkpoint, shot their car up, black bagged them. Two of our dudes were downstairs having a cigarette, fucking slit their throats in the basement of the fucking building. We don't even know if they were actually spies or people who.
We slit his fucking Achilles and we made him swim across the river to see if he could swim without Achilles tendons. I don't know. He was about 18. I don't give a fuck. We made a lesson to him. We fucking cut his Achilles heels and we made him swim across the Severodonetsk River, and he drowned. Or he was shot. We were all taking kind of like practice shots at him to see how well our shot was as he swam without Achilles heels. I don't know. Maybe you're guys from these Siberian shitholes, they can't swim well. Either way, he's dead. I am not stupid enough to incriminate myself. Of course, those fucking Georgian Legion guys did that stuff because they're fucking Georgians and they're retards. You know where the fuck he was from? He was from somewhere in Central Asia. Central Asia or Central Russia. We've been told to take no prisoners.
So a pretty harrowing testimony. I have a question for each of you. First, Alex, tell us about the Georgian Legion itself, not just the foreign fighters, but the Georgian warlord who is the head of this and has ties to the U.S. That would be Mamula Mamulashvili. And Wyatt, was any of this kind of barbarism described to you by people you met in Donetsk? I'm going to jump off for 30 seconds, but Alex, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so the Georgian Legion is led by a guy named Mamuka Mamulashvili. This is his fifth war against Russia. So, I mean, he was raised by a military guy and fighting from a very young age. He's at the end of the video we just watched, Benjamin Velcro says that we've been told to take no prisoners. This is exactly what Mamuka has said. He said it on camera. In response to the video of the field execution near Buka, Mamuka was asked about it, and he said that we take no prisoners. We won't take any Russians. Sometimes we tie their hands. I speak for the Georgian Legion. And this is a guy who is a suspect in the Maidan sniper massacre, what's believed by leading academics in the field to be a false flag attack in 2014 on the Maidan Square, where these massive protests were happening with U.S. support, mostly for NGOs and for some of the hardline groups there. And I believe it was 49 protesters were killed in this sniper attack. Zelensky himself has called it the most mysterious case in Ukraine history. And there's nobody in jail for it. And Mamuka, or specifically Georgian snipers led by Mamuka, are prime suspects. Since that time, Mamuka has been to the U.S. on a couple of occasions and met with quite a few Congress people on foreign policy committees and taken pictures outside the offices of a couple of critical senators, Gillibrand and Feinstein specifically. More recently, he's been very close with Adam Kinzinger. But, I wanted to talk about another guy in the Georgian Legion really quick, if you don't mind, Wyatt, Paul Gray, because Paul Gray is still inside the Georgian Legion, while as Craig Lang is not. Paul Gray is a veteran of several neo-Nazi organizations in the U.S., including Atomwaffen Division, which is considered a terrorist group by multiple countries. Really like the kind of guy that, like, if you look at the history of the left of the past, like 4 or 5 years, this is like, prime evil. This guy, he's like getting into all these confrontations with leftists. Yeah. Thank you, Max. And I actually realized that he was in Ukraine. This is after I had already covered the Georgian Legion a bit, but I realized that he was in Ukraine because a journalist associated with Antifa wrote about it. And when I reached out to that journalist, I was rebuffed. When I reached out to the Southern Poverty Law Center, which had also commented on this story, I was rebuffed because nobody wanted to associate this hatred that has brewed for the past 4 years for the far right among the left with what's going on in Ukraine now. So the left has totally ignored this story of neo-Nazis going over to fight with war criminals. And this guy remains, on the front lines with the Georgian Legion. They're getting all the positive press in the world, and his presence is obscured, or in the case of like Fox News, as we see here, you can see his Georgian Legion patch just totally embraced and celebrated as a hero.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Gray was how many softball positive Fox News interviews was this member or activist with several U.S. neo-Nazi organizations granted? And didn't the Department of Homeland Security issue a bulletin warning that figures like Paul Gray and Craig Lang, formerly of the Georgian Legion, would return to the United States with offensive weapons training, with combat training?
Yeah, they use that like DHS legalese where it's like extremist group in parentheses white supremacy, and they were concerned about keeping tabs on these people really after they come home, under the potential fear that they might bring their the things that they've learned, the lessons they've learned from being on the front lines against a major superpower, to the streets of American cities.